Every Wednesday morning at this time, we check in with our friends at the Blacklocks Reporter, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. The managing editor there is Tom Korski, who joins us for these weekly chats. Tom, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this one because I'm pretty sure I didn't know that Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada had a marketing department. Am I reading between the lines correctly here?
Isn't that something? That's literally their job title. They do have a marketing division, and they call themselves marketers of immigration. I know.
It's great work if you can get it, Tom.
It is.
Yeah.
It does sound like an interesting job, but they get into trouble sometimes because, on account of the weird juxtaposition of marketing and immigration. And indeed, they did in one case. They famously, in October, posted social media message announcing to foreigners and prospective immigrants, learn about healthcare in Canada. It said, thinking about moving to Canada? Did you know Canada has public health care? And it went on to extol the virtues of public health insurance. Interestingly, we see through access to information, Mike, they were sensitive about using the word free, not for the sake of immigrants, but I think for the sake of John Q. Sucker, taxpayer, who hears the billboard on taxpayer-funded health insurance for people who don't have a family doctor. They get a little hot. They get hot.
It is not free. I know that this comes off my taxes every year.
Oh, and how? By the way, one thing you do pay for is a program of some controversy. It wound up going to federal court a few years back, the Interim Federal Health Program, which pays for dental care, prescription drugs, and health care for illegal immigrants and refugee claimants, not landed immigrants, but the other ones, Interim Federal Health Program. Stephen Harper tried to cut it, went to a federal judge who said that's cruel and unusual and ordered it reinstated. That will cost you. We just see this budget figure just tabled, $598 million this year, over $500 million. That's real money.
John Q. Sucker, taxpayer, is a generous taxpayer.
He does give and give and give, doesn't he?
Okay, I don't mean to pick on Employment and Social Development Canada, but a couple of stories at blacklocks.ca have caught my attention from that particular department. Let's start off with the student loans being written off to the tune of how much?
$197 million this year. And that's the last stop. The write-offs is when occurs, everyone knows, when Canada Revenue Agency and the Department of Social Development that runs the Canada Student Loan Program says we're not getting a dime. You can't get blood from a stone. $197 million this year. But, Mike, nearly $3 billion is at Canada Revenue for collections. This is money that presumably would be deducted from any benefit that goes to delinquent borrowers. Almost $3 billion. It's a lot of money.
So you mean all those years ago, Tom, when I had my Ontario Student Assistance Program and I borrowed money and spent it on things that were not related to my education, I could have just not paid it back?
Well, isn't that interesting? You paid interest. Parliament waived that. No, interest is no longer required. It's an interest-free loan, which is, where do you get that in life, in the world? And the repayment terms are quite generous. And for all of that, they have said, Auditor General has said this, you watch for defaults and write-downs to go up and up and up. And that is because there's a lot of borrowers. And the famous case of a Superior Court judge in Newfoundland who was faced with a bankruptcy claim by a former student who had a Master's of Arts from the University of Prince Edward Island. Typically, you can't use bankruptcy law to get out from under a crown debt. But he let her because he said her degree was worthless. How's that for an attaboy on graduation day? Yeah.
Well done those past several years at school. Good job. The other thing from Employment and Social Development that has raised my eyebrow is the idea that we will create a real-time payroll data collection on some 21 million Canadian workers. The Phoenix pay system keeps coming up for me here, Tom, and it worries me.
It is absolutely tragic. Every time a government official walks into a room wearing a lab coat and a clipboard and saying, we want to upgrade your software, like everyone should tremble. Exactly. What is this? Anyone who runs payroll, doesn't matter, could be the smallest of small businesses, is constantly remitting this data back to Canada Revenue. This is for purposes of Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance premiums, and tax checkoffs. And they came up with this neat idea. They said, well, why all this paper? Why don't we have all those employers for 21 million workers right across the country submit it electronically into one big computer? Wouldn't that be great? What does the National Payroll Institute say? They actually did a report on this, and they said, I'll just quote them. I don't want to characterize it. They said, number one, this is the most sensitive of information on just about everybody in the workforce, how much you make, your medical deductions, everything about you. And the second point was, as they put it, the scope and scale is massive. It would impact every single employer and every worker in Canada, Mike, in the trembling hands of the same government that couldn't run a passport office. Oh, fear the future, absolutely.
There's nothing to worry about here. Nothing to worry about here.
Fine. It'll be fine.
Okay, one more I want to touch on before I let you go, because at Blacklocks, you have created a terrific reporter-owned and operated newsroom, works on a subscription model at blacklocks.ca, and yet our federal government heard this week that newspaper revenues have begun or continued perhaps to crater despite the subsidies that we have paid to it. And the newspaper industry says it can't change its model, Tom?
Isn't that something? Speaking of the taxpayers' woe, it is snowballing. The losses are snowballing in newspapers. These are StatsCan figures. The losses are absolutely staggering. So revenue's down a quarter since 2020. What happened in 2020? Well, they got a $500 million bailout. By the way, what's the bailout for newspapers? What small business in Canada would not like $30,000 a year per employee rebate? That's how generous the bailout is. And what did their chief lobbyist tell a committee? This was Paul Deegan, Chief Executive Officer of News Media Canada. He said, you may ask, why don't we change our business model? And he said he can't. We need to keep publishing on newsprint so we can get the ads from the Chevy dealers to support our journalism. We're powerless. We can't. Mike, this is like me saying, I can't sell my buggy whips, so I need you to keep subsidizing me in perpetuity. Any questions? Anyway, where do I fill out the grant application? This is an expensive failure.
Indeed, it is. As always, Tom, appreciate the conversations. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. Learn more, read more, get your own subscription at blacklocks.ca. The model works. It works very well because of the quality content Tom and his colleagues are putting out. Tom joins us every Wednesday morning at 10 here on the Mike Farwell Show as we mind Ottawa's business together.